One and all, welcome to another episode of Baggers Chat. My name is Mitch Pattinson, and as always, I'm joined by Ethan Duffy. And a little bit of a different episode today. Of course, we are previewing Carlton v Sydney this week, but we have a very special guest later on in the episode, so make sure to tune into that. It's our very good mate, Noah Fisher. You might know him from Coupe de Villa, but we're going to have him later on in the show, and he's, of course, a Sydney supporter. So can't wait for that. But first things first, Duffy boy, how are you, mate?
Oh, I'm good. I think it's getting tougher and tougher every week to back this side in because they find a way to tear you down. But what is it, round 11? There's 13 more games and 13 more opportunities, I reckon, to really grab this season by the scruff of the neck and kind of get our season running. And I think this week, I know we said it last week, but I think, the next couple of weeks is huge for our season. We can't be going below the kind of 50% win rate. If you go... I want to be 4-5 right now. You're under it. If you lose that, then you're 4-6, and you're playing a catch-up game for the rest of the year. So it'll be tough, but looking forward to the challenge at the SCG.
Yeah, spot on. So of course it's round 11 this week. Friday, 26th of May, 7:50 start at the SCG. It's a game that realistically, on paper, last year we would probably think of it if we were playing the type of football that we were playing this year, would probably be nowhere near favourites to beat Sydney, but they're not too crash hot at the moment either. So they're looking for a win, and they're looking for a win as much as we are. But we'll touch on the injury update just quickly. So we'll just touch on a few returns last week from the VFL that might be in contention for our seniors this week. But of course, Jack Martin was rested last week in the VFL due to general soreness. No surprise there, Duffy boy. I think it was more just, I don't think it was anything serious. I think it was just, I know that this week he was training with the main group, and it's really this week where he might be a chance to play. I'm not too sure. Caleb Marchbank returned to the VFL as well. He's another one who's one of those players that I think he needs to play a lot more VFL football for him to be even near in contention to play seniors football. And of course, TDK returned as well to the VFL, and he is well and truly in line to maybe come back into the senior side. But before we transition to potential inclusions, Daff, out of those three, and maybe some more names as well, who do you think might be in contention?
Yeah, it is. It's always an interesting talk with Carlton. I think we always have these players that are 1 to 2 weeks, Cunners, Marchbank. I honestly think you rule out Cunners this year. I think he just seems to be having these setbacks, and it's extremely frustrating. So I think we have to rule him out just for our own, soul in a sense, Yeah, we keep backing him into play every week, and he's going to be back in 3 weeks. But I think we just need to rule that out until he actually comes back. So, but with these two, I think these three, obviously Jack Martin, another frustrating one. I think for me, I think he could be in for a Melbourne clash or an Essendon clash. I think he's one of those guys who can perform on the big stage in terms of those big kind of Melbourne clubs that we play against. I think he always plays pretty well against them, and it'd be good to have him back, that kind of X factor, but definitely not this week. Obviously trained with the main group, Aussie said, but he's had a bit of general soreness, which is kind of regular for him. But Marchie, he's similar, frustrates the living crap out of everyone, and great footballer. But if he keeps, for me, I think he's on borderline delisting. I think that, just in terms of how long are we seriously going to hold on to the guy? I'm not having a go at him, but there's, there's talk about Ben Mackay, there's talk about other key backs. Like maybe you need to bring in some, other guys in who will play consistent footy, whether it's at AFL or VFL level. And then Teddy K for mine, just a little bit of a sneak peek into my inclusions. He'll be in my inclusions. I think we missed out on him last week, considering Cameron wasn't the sub. And it kind of hurt us considering Sauce was the second ruck, which I'm not too big of a fan of.
And it's quite interesting to actually talk about the whole delistings at the end of the year, because 2 years ago, Marchbank was a lock in his best 22, and it's really is a fall from grace. I mean, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but of course it is a fall from grace for Marchbank. But a lot of these players, Sam Cook is another one that might be delisted. Paddy Dow's another one that probably will be traded out of the club if he doesn't find his form in the senior side this year. But if not, he probably will be delisted and pushed out the door, kind of like Liam Stocker a bit last year as well. So there's a few names there that will be pushed out the door because, as you said, there will be names that are, I guess, linked to the club and might actually come into the club like a Ben Mackay. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. And I don't want to talk about next season already. I know that last episode we were kind of saying that it's kind of season over, but it's far from over, but it's not anywhere near us charging towards the finals. We are right now 50-50. If we can pull our finger out, that's going to really change. Maybe it might reignite some sort of form in the club this week if we can get the win over the Swans. And I don't know. It's just, I don't like going to the football and watching games on the TV. Especially since we're playing in Sydney this week, I'll be watching on the TV, and I don't want to have the fear of not knowing what to expect. I don't like the unpredictability. I don't like that. I want to go to the football, watch on the TV, and just know what I'm going to expect and more worry about the opposition and what they do. So now we'll just transition quickly into our potential inclusions. Daff, who are you bringing in and who are you bringing out?
So I've got 4 changes for this week's clash. I'll start with my outs. I'll start from the top, and I'll have my reasonings for each player. They're not all dropped in a sense.
Yeah.
Some of them managed. Actually, one of them managed, to be honest. So my first one's Jesse Mollop. I think he's just due for either a rest. But for mine, I've actually got him as the sub for this clash. I think he's kind of that player that you can have that X factor in the last quarter or come in the second half to really give it a crack up forward. Whether he swaps with a taller forward, depending on the situation, really, isn't it? It's so hard to really pick out who he's really going to switch with. But he's my first players out of the side from last week. Ollie Hollins, I've got him managed. I think he's due for a rest. And I'll talk about his replacement in a second. And for mine, Ed Curnow and Jack Silvani omitted. I like Jack. I love what he brings, but I've come to the conclusion of what is his actual role in the team. I think he's heart and soul. I'm not saying he might be out for a week. I think he's in our best 22, but there's got to be a change of the guard a little bit in terms of, just because he's a Silvani and we love him, doesn't mean he's going to play every week. You got to have a role. And I think we've changed that up a little bit, because I think with him, if you have him, obviously Silvani, TDK, Pitto, Harry, Charlie, that's 6 talls. Like, it gets a bit ridiculous. I think we need a bit more pace around the lineup. So those are the 4 outs for mine. Obviously, Ed Curnow struggling a little bit, playing that half forward kind of defensive role, but it's just not really cutting it for mine. My ins, I've got the big TDK, the guy who kicked it the wrong way in the VFL, but I've got him in. Down at Williamstown, kicking against the wind. He's gone the wrong way, but no, I think he's in for mine. I think you have to play him. He provides something different. He's that perfect second ruck to Pitto. He can play forward, I think, hopefully.
Yeah.
He's very good for mine. Georgie Hewitt into the side for mine. I think he's just got to start. I think it was quite ridiculous. I thought he actually played all right when he came on.
Yeah.
In the game. It happens every week. Our sub teams, or apart from the Ed Curnow one, but I think it was Kennedy the Brisbane week, where he had about 58 touches in one quarter. So Georgie back in the side, I think he has to play. For a bit more pace that I was kind of touching on before, I think Zach Fisher will come into the side. Big for Fish, huge next couple of weeks, because he can't play at AFL level in terms of the output we think he can play. Then the pressure's going to start coming on him, because it will come to the point end of the year, if we're not close to finals, there's going to be a lot of talk in terms of trade period. Seriously, like, it's going to be very interesting, but we won't talk about trade period currently. But and my last one, it's going to be a debutant for the Carlton Football Club. He's been very, very good in the twos, and I think it's going to be Jackson Binns. So he's going to be a straight swap for Ollie Hollins.
Yep.
I think Ollie's probably going to be managed, whether he plays twos. I'm not sure, but nothing wrong with Ollie. I just think he's played a lot of footy early and probably needs a rest. I thought he was okay on the weekend. I think it's okay, but I think he needs some fresh legs. And Binns' ball use has been superb in the twos, and it's really stood out to me. Like, you watch VFL for a quarter, and he looks comfortable at that level, and hopefully he's comfortable at AFL level in his first game, and hopefully we get a win on Friday night, Pato.
Yeah, well said, Duffy boy. Let's hope we're going to get the win this week. Bloody hell. Now, it's unbelievable, because we we both think very much alike. We don't know, for the viewers, we don't know who's our ins and outs. We always like to keep that secret just because we can talk about it right on air and actually speak about it as soon as it comes to our mind. Unbelievable, because mine are very similar to yours, but I do have one difference. So, of course, Ollie Hollands managed out, Jesse Motlop omitted. It's interesting that we both went with Motlop and not Durden. So, Motlop, I think, needs to be omitted. I think Durden offers just a little bit more pace-wise and I guess just intensity-wise. I just think he offers a little bit more than Motlop. Ed Kerno, exact same. I don't think I'm more thinking towards last year. He didn't play a single game last year, and look how we performed. So I'm more thinking about this year where I don't really want him anywhere near it unless there is an injury. That's when you bring Ed Kerno in as a midfielder. I don't want him as sub. I was really optimistic about having him as sub a weeks ago, but I don't want him near the sub. I don't want him as a half forward. I don't want him anything like that. So, and the other one, Mitch McGovern. I've omitted Mitch McGovern. I reckon his performance. You need a Bossy press conference on the weekend. Absolutely fantastic. I hope he makes a stand this week, put a line in the sand, and make a big selection call. And one of them is Mitch McGovern. And I'm sorry, as you said last episode on there, he could be at home right now watching Baggers Chat, having his pina coladas, but I reckon, Gov, unfortunately, mate, I don't care if you're on 800K a year, you need to have a week off and you need to have a kick up the bum back in the VFL, and you can actually find what it means to wear the jumper. Find what it means to actually represent the monogram every single week. That's what these people don't understand. And I'm going to show this clip right now, which is a member that is speaking through the week of about what the club means. And
the players don't care. They don't give a rat's backside. They don't want to chase. They don't want to play. You have Ashley Hansen before the game saying that no one in the club listens to outside noise. Maybe you should. Maybe you should. Maybe the coaching panel, the players, the board must listen to us members. We've got 88,000, almost 90,000 members. You want us to sign up next year? Bloody show us something. Show us the heart. Last year we gave you the excuse we had an injury to play at midfield and we just missed out. We thought this year we'd go again. What's the excuse? If you're not going to play, I said it a few weeks ago, if you're not going to play for the coach, play for people like myself who bust my balls every week to get there. Hard-earned money. And you dish that up against Collingwood. They toyed with us. It's an embarrassment for the navy blue and white, especially the emblem. The emblem. Play for that. If you're not going to play for it, piss off out my club. Get out.
But I hope that's been shown to the club and to the players especially, because that was passion personified. And I reckon that was absolutely fantastic. So I think that was great. So Gov is my last out. And, of course, in Zach Fisher, in.
Yep.
Tom DeConning, in.
Yep.
George Hewitt, in.
Yep.
And last, Brody Kemp. Brody Kemp I brought back in. I think he's a like-for-like for Gov. I don't think if you were to drop a Weeders, I think you would drop a Weeders or a Young. You need to bring Sam Durden in because I don't think Kemp is he's not a key back. Not yet. I don't think he is yet. I think when he gets some size onto him, that's when he can really transition into becoming a key defender. But right now, it seems to be when he's in the senior side, he's more an intercepting defender, and that's exactly what Gov's role is. And he's not executing his role. So that's why you need to have a change in selection. I don't care if it's Mitch McGovern. I don't care. I don't care if he has experience. I don't care. He doesn't have experience because he's not a premiership player. So I don't care if he has experience. I'm over it. I'm over the nice, I don't want to hurt any feelings. I'm over it. So make a stand this week, Vossi, if you're listening to me. I'm sure you would be. But, of course, my sub, and this might be controversial. So I was about to say Mendy sub. It's substitute. Jack Martin.
Martin, okay.
I've got in just for exact
Okay.
same reasons for you with Jesse Motlop. Adds a bit of pace, adds a bit of freshness in that third or fourth quarter if he was to come in. So I think he's a great sub to have. I don't want to play him in the seniors for his first game back for a full game. I think I want to try and have him as a sub, see how he goes, and if he actually lifts and actually finds something within the group, that's when you might actually think to bring him in. But so now we'll move on to the back line. We'll move on to some lines. And of course, as every single week, we start off with the back line first. So we've gone with our defenders against their smalls. So usually we go against their key forwards, but this week we're going with their smalls. And I reckon, other than Franklin and maybe Hayden McLean, there's not as much threat down there key forward wise, other than the small forwards. So I think the small forwards is the big threat. So of course, Tom Papley and Isaac Heaney I have as their two big names down there. And of course, you could have Errol Gordon down there transitioning through that forward line. But Daffy Boy, who's a big threat out of those two? And also Gordon, if there is any other names as well, other than Gordon.
Yeah, well, that name actually worries me a bit. I think he actually worries me more than the two guys here because I think he had about 45 touches in the preseason.
In the preseason.
The way we played that game, it's really reflected our first 10 weeks.
Yeah.
Like that game, did we lose by 50 or 60 against them? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
It was a very high amount. Luckily, I wasn't tuned in. I was at the Ed Sheeran concert because apparently it was an absolute shit show. But no, with these, I think Papley, I said to you today, I texted you today, I think he was a big miss for us in that trade period a few years ago. I think he's the perfect small forward. His output in terms of goals is every week he's kicking goals. His pressure, he's annoying. He's that type of small forward that you love to hate, but also you respect the way he plays. So, but I think, with both him and Heaney, I think with Newman, I think Newman will take a Heaney. I think Newman's kind of good on that kind of when a Dusty comes down or a Toby Green, who can sometimes go into the mid. Those kind of forwards that can go into the midfield, like a Heaney. I think we can pick them up in terms of kind of eliminating their threat on the game. But with Papley, I think it's it's going to rotate whether it's Boyd or Sard. It's going to be interesting there. But what was your thoughts on Boyd's game on the weekend? Because I thought he was okay. He struggled defensively.
Yeah, I thought he was solid. I know that I was speaking to a Collingwood supporter through the week, and he thought he was absolutely had no idea how to play. Like it looked like he was his first game. And I'm like, I actually thought he was half decent. So I don't know if it was more towards me as a Carlton supporter, and I'm biased towards my players, or if it's just from a non-Carlton supporter and actually realizing that he's shit. I don't know. I reckon he's solid. I reckon he stays in. If he gets dropped this week, that's pretty stiff on him. If he was to get dropped this week, but I thought he was solid, and we've been really missing Zach Williams. That's one player that we've been really missing, and Jordan Boyd's probably that the best like we have at the club right now. Just his penetration with his ball used by foot, but also his pace when he gets the ball can really change the game. So, and one name that I'm going to mention right now that needs to have a big game, Adam Sard. Sardi he's probably getting his average touches, I guess, but his impact on the game, not so much. So I really want to try and see Sard respond this week. But we'll now move on to the midfield clash, of course. As every single week we name 3 midfielders from us and 3 midfielders from them. So Patrick Cripps, Sammy Walsh, Adam Chera up against Luke Parker, Errol Gordon, and Chad Warner. So there's 2 names there that are quite young, but very much potential stars of the future in the next few years, if not already stars of the future. If not already stars. So Luke Parker is a great midfielder, pretty underrated, I still think. I reckon he's very important to Sydney, but of course Gordon and Warner in there as well. But Daffy Boy, who do you think out of this midfield from our side, but also from their side, who do you think needs a big game this week?
Oh, I think the midfield group as a whole, I think their connection for the last probably 4, 5, 6 weeks has just been terrible. It's just been bad. they're doing all the great stuff around the stoppage. But I think today I heard a stat that I think we're the third highest team in terms of getting the ball from stoppage, and we're second last in terms of turning those clearances into goals. So it shows you how bad we're going. So we're getting more clearances than most teams, and we're getting less goals out of it. So that shows you it's like you're on one end of the scale in terms of getting the pill, and then the next obviously converting. So massive performance. I thought Cripper was okay last week. I thought he was okay. He really just hasn't had that impact on games, which is frustrating me. But I think with these three, especially with George coming in now, Kennedy as well, I thought it was okay. The last couple of weeks has been good. But like you said, Luke Parker, he's always that type of guy. He gets a fair bit of the ball against us. And I think guys like Goulden and Warner, those fast mids that we struggled to really stop on the weekend against Collingwood, like Dacos, and we just couldn't pick them up at all. So I think for mine, it's the pressure. If the pressure gauge is up in the first half, I think we can really hit them hard. But I think, based off last weekend, if we're not up to the challenge in pressure wise, we had 12 guys without a tackle. We're not going to win the game. You can't win the game like that.
Yeah. So if you were to see this week the sub being George Hewitt again, and there's not many changes, what would your response be?
I wouldn't mind it. It's just that based on how we're playing, it's like if I can back those guys in from last weekend, those mids, they should have been much better. They got a lot of the ball. It was just that connection going forward, which it's just unbelievable. Like, I'm not trying to be mad. I'm trying to be positive here, but it actually is unbelievable. Like, it's pretty hard to, like, first of all, watch it. And then second of all, think about why that's happening. It's not even, sometimes they're not under pressure and they're missing these targets. So, and good teams make you pay, and Collingwood made us pay. And when they stuffed it up, we didn't make them pay because of our ball use.
Yep.
So I'm telling you, that is our number one thing that's holding us back right now, and it's ourselves. So, very, very frustrating. It's losing us games, and with these quality players, you see here, Goulden can go forward, kick goals, Warner can kick goals, Parker can kick goals. We're off the leash, and our pressure game's low. We're turning it over. They're transitioning. That's that Carlton. When we're not playing well, it's that they run through the middle, easy goals from 50. Hit up buddies, hit up their forwards they have up there. So, going to be important in the middle, but my worry is not winning it at the source. It's what we're doing after that.
Spot on. So we'll now touch on, of course, the ruck battle. This is the big one, and we expect TDK to come back in as that second ruck. We hope Pitnet keeps his spot here, of course. Today, signed a 4-year deal. So whether that means that they might be sticking with Pitnet as that main ruck, and maybe they might move TDK on at the end of the year, I don't know. That's something that will be sorted at the end of the year. But right now, I think TDK has to come back in as that second ruck. And of course, up against Mick Andrew, who is not an experienced ruck whatsoever. Ludham's last week, of course, got injured in the Sydney game, and there's not a lot of names that can come back in for Sydney. So this is, of course, what Fisher will touch on later on. He might see some names coming in to fill that ruck role. But for us, Duffy boy, who do you think, how do you see Mick Andrew and his game up against a sole ruckman like Pitnet, but also TDK coming in as that second ruck?
To be honest, I don't even know who this bloke is. I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm not. No, see, that's not being mean. I just don't really. I watch Sydney games here and there, but I haven't really, looked at him. And obviously, we'll definitely be asking Fish about him, because obviously he'd know a lot more, because we've got players that we rate, and then 100%. Blokes have been like, who the hell is that? So, no, I think based on your question, I think with Pitto, I think he's got to win that battle. I think he's won most battles, to be honest with you. Definitely in the ruck, but I think for mine, his negative is just around the ground, and hopefully TDK can cover that. I think with their second ruck, I'll definitely be McLean. I imagine he'd be the backup ruck, so that'll be interesting, because I think he actually goes all right as a second ruck for them. He's kind of really good up forward, but also can hold his own in the ruck. So will be interesting. But I want a TDK game. I want a little bit, not a breakout game, but I just want him to show why he's at the club, and, kind of not shut up the rumours, but show why he's such a highly rated player from, around the league. Because I think the last couple of weeks, everyone's going, we're just banking on him, potential. Just show it. Just go out there and show it. We know we can. So, it'll be very interesting. It's an interesting situation because we haven't had many players leave the last few years, which is quite a good thing. But we haven't had, in a sense, like those players. I guess there was talk about Harry and Charlie a little bit, but you never thought they were going to leave. But with TDK, there's definitely a possibility. So hopefully he stays at the club because I'll definitely rate him. But we'll have to talk about that at the end of the year.
Yeah, spot on. And of course, last line, Harry Mackay, Charlie Curnow up against Francis and Fox. So this is a conversation that we don't really know with their key defender who is going to take a Charlie Curnow or Harry Mackay, whoever Francis goes to, whoever that key defender, whoever that will be, who else takes that other key forward. But Daffy Boy, how do you see this forward line working out? But of course, also the small forwards from our end need a response.
Yep, the small forwards. I'll touch on them first. I think Owies has been good. I think he's a lock for the best 22 every week. He just kicks goals. So I think it was very frustrating, his couple of his misses last week, especially that. It was very uncharacteristic of him missing from out in front. But in the keys, you look at those players, man, holy moly. You got Harry and Charlie versus Francis and Fox. So you're not going to have a Darcy Moore down there plucking everything. So side bottom won't be laughing this week. But no, realistically, we should be winning that. But like I said, with the midfield, you can have all the players you like up forward. If you can't hit them, what's the point? What is the point? You could have prime bloody Gary Ablett Senior up full forward. If you can't hit him up, he's not kicking goals. So it'll be very interesting up forward.
Yeah, completely spot on. So now we'll transition into the more Sydney side of things. Of course, if you're watching on YouTube and any other platforms that, of course, have the videography of the podcast, we have Noah Fisher joining us today. He's, of course, a Sydney supporter, as we mentioned at the start of the episode. Of course, he has the Coupe de Villa in the background, which is what he's usually known for. But Noah Fisher, mate, how are you?
Mate, very well. Thanks for having me on. Big fan of the Bagger Chat, more of a neutral, more than in a game like this.
Always good to hear, mate. So it's kind of, I mean, of course, throughout the episode, Duff and I have kind of just gone through the Carlton side of things. I mean, with lines and stuff, the back line, midfield, rucks and forward line, of course. But it's just some questions where I think it's a good addition to have for the episodes where we kind of see the opposition side of things, because obviously we don't really see inside of the club what the opposition's actually bringing and who there might be some, maybe like a debutant playing this week. But potential inclusions, mate. Who do you reckon is going to come in for the Sydney Swans?
Oh, geez, I don't know. We got that many out still. My main concern, who's going to play on your big boys? The only one I can think of would be Lewis Melican. He's just come back from injury. I think he played a few consistent seasons before he kept on getting injured, but he's now back and he could come do a job maybe.
Yeah. That's actually a big one, because I reckon, like, I've actually forgotten about Lewis Melican, Duffy Boy. I don't know about you, but I don't know.
I think, well, if I'm not wrong, it might be 2021 trade period. I think Pato may have brought his name up in terms of key back, because I think this is when the whole Liam Jones thing happened and we needed a key back in terms of trade period. And that name did float around in the Pato household. So it would be a big in for you in terms of size. I think size is big against Harry and Charlie in terms of, well, you saw Darcy Moore on the weekend. He's got the height and the athleticism to take on a Curnow and a Mackay. So he's the perfect matchup. So that'll be very interesting on your side of things, Fish.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I mean, I just don't know who could match him in the air. I mean, Aaron Francis has a bit of a leap on him, but I don't think he's any match, to be honest.
And in terms of Lewis Melican, do you think that he has a chance to maybe come back for the senior side because there is literally no one else? Or would you, as a supporter, would you rather him? Because what was his injury?
I think he did his knee, or not an ACL, but he's just been out for niggling injuries for a couple of years, really. Yeah.
So would you rather see him come back into the senior side? Because I know as a supporter, like if I was to see, say, we put a Caleb Marchbank, Daffy Boy, as a player that's come back from a long-term injury, I would rather see him in the VFL. But if there's no one else that can come back in, you might have to chuck him in because for both sides, it's a must-win game. So do you see him coming back into the senior side this week if there literally is no one else?
Well, he's played all season in the VFL, I believe, since round one.
Okay.
So I think he's probably done enough to show he's fit enough to play. I think it's needed.
Yeah,
I don't think, like, obviously, if you have a full fit team, he doesn't get a look in at all. But I think at this time, I think it's time to recall him for sure.
Yeah, spot on. So that's kind of more towards our forward line. So now we'll transition into the midfield, of course. So as we always do every single episode, we mentioned throughout the episode, we mentioned our 3 midfielders from our end, but of course, 3 midfielders from your end. So is there any player that you reckon that it really is a threat from a Carlton sense, but also is there a player that you might think needs a big game from the Sydney Swans?
I think Chad Warner is due. He had a very good year last year, and he hasn't quite hit the heights of what he did last season. He's looking to getting better. I know it was against North Melbourne, but played very, very well last week. Obviously, look, you know what you're going to get from Luke Parker. He's just hard as it comes. But I think Chad Warner he needs to run the midfield, I think, and it's a good chance for him with Mills out.
Yeah. And Duff, so more from a Carlton sense, who do you think? I mean, I know that we mentioned it throughout the episode, but if you were to choose one midfielder from us, and whether it's a Akers on the wing or even if Ollie Hollands keeps his spot this week, is there a certain name that you want to see a response this week?
I think it's Sam Walsh. In terms, when you look at their midfielders, I think Goulden and Warner, they're fast, they get moving, attacking, minded kind of players. As I was touching on before, they're against Collingwood. We had these day costers running off, and those midfielders that can. They're not, Parker's obviously the bigger body. He's good as well going forward. But I think with Goulden and Warner, they're more the modern type midfielders. So I think with Walshy been a little bit down the last couple of weeks, I think it's his time to, show, Chad and Errol who the top dog is.
What's your thoughts on that, Fish?
I mean, it's a must-win for both sides. So I think the midfield is where the game's going to be won.
Yeah.
I think when Laddams went down on Saturday, that's when North Melbourne started to get on top. So the service is going to be key, but that's what's going to be won and lost. If we get good service inside 50, with Buddy, we've got Hayden McLean that's clunking him at the moment. Who knows?
Yeah. And that's the questions, because I actually want to now transition into the rucks. And this is the big talking point, because from our sense, we expected Tom DeConnie to come back into the side as that second ruck. And whether it's Silvani keeping his spot or whether he actually gets dropped and Teddy K comes back in as that straight swap, you have Lachlan McAndrew, who isn't very experienced as that sole ruckman. But we have seen this quite often in AFL football in the past few years, where this no-name ruckman, I mean, probably one that comes to mind is a Matt Flynn from GWS, who had that chance as the sole ruck, and now he is that sole ruck as a GWS ruck. So is that a real worry from your sense as a support, from your side as a supporter? And do you see Hayden McLean coming in as that second ruck?
Well, Hayden McLean will have to play backup, because I still think Hickey and Laddams are out. They're both in the injury report. I think Hickey's got delayed concussion or something that's keeping him out, which seems to be a big concern for us at the moment. We've got 3 boys out with that. On Saturday, McAndrew, he's bloody tall. I think he's 206 centimeters or something. He's very tall, but he's very thin. I don't think he could ruck against the big bodies.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's a good opportunity for him.
Yeah.
Because sole ruck, and it's his spot at the moment. If he grabs it with both hands, who knows what the future holds. But it's going to be interesting for sure.
And I think, sorry,
Dave, you go.
Oh, good, brother. Just with that, I think it's similar to the situation we actually had with TDK, where Matty Cruiser retired. So you go, who's the actual ruck? Obviously he's given Pito an opportunity the last 2 years, and with McAndrew, he's learning off some good rucks. I think Peter Laddams is very good on his day, and I think Hickey's been phenomenal the last 2 years, especially the grand final making year. So it could be a coming of age for a player. It could be his game. The McAndrew game. He might just kill Pito, which I don't think will happen, and I don't think it should happen. But it'll be very interesting. I think it's a big game for Pito, especially he's got that contract extension, 4-year contract extension this morning. So it'll be very, very interesting.
Yeah, and what I was about to ask you, Fish, is has there been any word from Amadi? Because I know that he would be that perfect player to come back in as that second ruck, and you can maybe keep Hayden McLean up forward as that permanent forward, because he's a threat up there as well.
Oh, I love Joel Amadi. I absolutely love him. I think it was a 6-week hamstring injury he did against Richmond, but I think he's still a couple of weeks away. I think he's just started running now at training, but that's just when it all started, to be honest. That Richmond game or the Port Adelaide game, just everyone started going down. But I can't wait to see him back, because I think when Buddy does retire, him and Logan McDonald, Hayden McLean, it's their spot to take.
Yeah. And of course, our last line, the back line, Daffy Boy, I'll let you take over.
Yeah, well, for mine, it's been tough down there for us in terms of our key defenders have been very down. And I think with the Swans, maybe obviously with Buddy, obviously he's the man down there still, the old fella's still kicking. But I think it's your smalls that really win your games. When you are up and about, it's your smalls. And I think with Papley and Heaney, we were talking about them earlier. Those types of guys that hit the scoreboard. And we were saying it was such a shame that we actually missed out on Papley a few years ago in the trade period, because he'd actually be the perfect small forward right now for us that we're kind of lacking. But for you, how do you see that in terms of how do you reckon your forwards match up against our defenders? Because I think obviously we've got Weeders and Youngie, who probably one of them will take a Buddy. But in terms of smalls, how do you reckon your smalls will go?
Yeah, I'm actually pretty excited to see how the smalls go, because being a Swan supporter this season, all our smalls have actually been down. Like Papley hasn't been anywhere near as good as last season. Heaney's been struggling. Like Errol Goulden's come to age, but he's playing more in the midfield at the moment. So I'm hoping that at least one of them have a day out, because just their numbers and pressure acts they've been like really disappointing. Teams getting the ball out so easy. And obviously, what you get from Buddy is going to be Weeders versus Buddy for maybe one last time. That's always the big talking point. And I think Weeders seems to have the better of Buddy most of the time. So I'm just hoping that Paps or Heaney can kick a bag.
Yeah, well, with Buddy, I think it's going to be based on Wiedering's performances last probably the whole year. I think it could be a big one for Buddy if he just continues that kind of form he's been in. Weeders, I think it's something mental wise. I think with the whole 22, and I'd imagine there'd be some players for the Swans that are obviously down mentally, because you've still got a great side there. It's weird that both of our sides are kind of in a similar situation in terms of just playing so under ourselves, and it's just ridiculous. So that'll be very interesting. On to you, Pato.
Yeah, and Fish, just one more question for you, because as Duff beautifully just said then, what do you think about the whole, because you guys last year, you made the fucking grand final. You guys were well and truly up there to actually, to pretty much be the premiership. You guys were contenders. And now this year, I actually had you guys as you guys are going to break that drought of the loser in the grand final getting smashed in the grand final. I think your team was too talented to fall. But once again, you guys are what? You guys are 12th on the ladder after a win last week, and I think you guys were 14th on the ladder. What do you think that's due to? Do you reckon that's more on Longmuir? Is it Longmire or Longmuir? I always get confused between
Longmire.
Longmire, yeah. So Justin Longmuir. No, trust me, I knew that. I just wanted to stay official. I just want to stay official. But do you reckon that's more down to the coaching staff, or do you reckon it's more just down to their mentality? Because you've seen it a lot in grand finals in the past few years. They've got smashed, and the year after, the team that loses is pretty shit.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think you can blame the coaching staff, because you got to think, even since round one, we haven't had that same team from the grand final, or even the prelim final, actually playing together.
Yeah.
We've really just been kicked in the guts with injuries. I mean, you lose your three key backs, Rampy, McCartan for most of the week, most of the year, sorry. And then, you lose Sam Reid, who I know he's a bit of a meme for Swan supporters. He's either good or he's bad, but he can take a big mark. And during the final series last year, he did that, provided I know he got injured so early in the grand final, which really hurt. But I don't know. I don't think you can blame the coaching staff, because I think the plans are there. I do think there'd be a lot of mental scarring, though, from the grand final, because it's never easy. I mean, you get so far, you're so high. A lot of people actually thought the Swans could do it on the day. Obviously, I thought we could, being a Swan supporter. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't think you can blame the coaching staff for sure.
Yeah, spot on. Anything you want to touch on there, Duffy boy?
Yeah, I agree with the whole continuity in your team and your best 22. I think that's what hurt us last year. Everyone can talk about how we choked from 8-2, but realistically, you look at the team from 8-2 to the end of the season, there would have been changes every single week in terms of injuries. The last 4 weeks we didn't have Walsh, Hewitt, Kennedy. It hurts. And look at Sydney right now. It's disappointing, because it's like you can't control it. It's the uncontrollables which annoy you. Because right now we've got the full side in, so we're not controlling the controllables. So it's extremely disappointing. But on your end, you're in the same position, but you've got the injuries. We don't. We have a full side, realistically, apart from maybe Zach Williams, who's out for the year. So a big game this week, because I think one of the teams loses. I think their season could be on ice real quick.
Yeah, I reckon it's this week where it's for either side. For both sides, it's do or die. But for either side, if one wins, it's do, and the other, because if one of us can get the win, that can really get us going in the season. So I don't know. I'm pretty nervous, but so Fish, our last segment that we'll do before we'll let you go. It's match predictions. So I'm gonna get Daffy Boy. I'm gonna get Daffy Boy to do the three predictions that we're doing, just so you can maybe have some time to think about it. But I'm gonna get your best on ground, your point of difference. So that's just a player that you think you might bring in from maybe a guy that might be in from the VFL, or a player that has kind of been down, or a player that's kind of not really been up and about this season. And you might think of him as a point of difference for you getting the win. And of course, winner plus margin. So Daffy Boy, I'll get you to take through all of those, and I'll move on to you, Fish.
It's an interesting one, because obviously at the end of the review against Collingwood, we were very emotional. And I did say if I tipped Carlton again this week, I would not be on Baggage again. So I'm going to have to. So obviously I'll start off with my BAG. I said before, this guy needs to get going. He needs to get going. We know he can. It's going to be Sammy Walsh. The point of difference, it's going to be Jordan Boyd off halfback. We talked about it earlier. He's under the radar in a sense, and I think he's the perfect type of guy for a point of difference. His ball use off halfback's probably one of our best, apart from maybe Sardi when he's going. So that'll be one to watch. And winner and margin, like I touched on earlier, I can't tip Carlton again. I can't do it again. So I'm going Sydney by a point.
Sydney by a point. That is
closest I can get to a Carlton tip.
That is the best. You should have just said draw, mate. You should have just said either or. No. All right, Fish, I need your best on ground, point of difference, and winner plus margin. Don't be too much, Fish.
So my best on ground, I spoke about him before, but Chad Warner, I think it's his time to take the game by the scruff of the neck and just dominate the midfield for us. I think he'd have a big day. And last season he was known for kicking a goal or two in a game, so I hope he can bring that. Point of difference, I was tossing up between a couple. I was thinking James Rowbottom, whose tackling pressure is just second to none when he's up and about. But then I'm going to go with Tommy Papley. I think that he could just take the game away from you guys if he does. And we've seen him do it to teams before. My head for a result is saying go the Baggers. I just don't think we're going to quite get up, but my heart's saying go the Swannies. I only got the Swans by 14.
Oh no! See, I don't know about you, but Tommy Papley, he's why he would absolutely love, because he's been a little bit down this year. If he could get up and about this week and actually perform against the side that he was about to move to, but maybe get a bag of goals, that's going to be a big one. But Daff, just one more question for you. Who do you think is going to take Papley if they're like? I know that we mentioned maybe Nick Newman, but throughout the episode after Fish has spoken, is maybe a shift of roles, or do you still think a Nick Newman might go to Papley?
Well, yeah, I think Newey will go to a Heaney, and I think Adam Sard will take Papley in terms of being able to work off him.
Yeah,
force him to defend. I think Papley's a superstar. So if he's hurting it offensively, you want to hurt him back offensively as well. And I think Sard can make that happen. So it'll be interesting. But I don't mind Fisher's calls. He's two good players, BAG with Chad Warner, who's probably my favourite player at the Swans. And it'd be interesting. I don't know about the tip, but yeah, it's all right.
All right. Well, I'm going to do my match predictions, and I'm just going to spoil it very quickly. Winner plus margin, I've gone Swans by 24 points. I just want to get that straight out of the way, because I know that I did not want to tip Carlton, and I'll say this right now. You watch stuff, and Fish, you as well, if you've been watching Carlton games throughout the season, throughout the year. Carlton always lose by 20 points. Always in that 20 to 30 point margin. So I put Swans by 24 points. Best on ground, we spoke about it throughout the episode, Daffy Boy, Adam Sard. I reckon he is due for a big one. And if he could get maybe 25 touches, but a lot of rebound, disposals, and really get some intercept possessions and really take the game on, that's going to help us as well. So I reckon his impact, if he can really dominate that game, I reckon that's going to help us win. But point difference as well. Hopefully he's in, because I know in the past couple of weeks I've done a point of difference. I think I did Brody Kent, and he didn't even fucking play. So I'm hoping point of difference this week, Zach Fisher. So of course he's got a great last name, same as you, Noah Fisher. But I'm just expecting a big game from Fish, because especially if he comes in, he's going to be willing to well and truly get a great performance and actually keep his spot in the best 22. David Boyd, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, just on Zach Fisher, I don't know if the Fish actually remembers it, but he did kick the sealer last year. So hopefully he kicks another sealer this year.
Of course, that's the episode done. It's a little bit, I'm sure it will be probably around an hour long, if I could guess. But of course, it's been an absolute pleasure having a supporter on, seeing their sort of insight from their side of things, because we're so Carlton based. But I think it's a great addition for Baggers Chat to have kind of an insight from a passionate supporter like you, Fish. But from your end, mate, is there anything else you want to touch on for the episode?
Oh, I know you guys are saying Sard could have a day out, but Ryan Clark, good tagger. It's just that I throw it out there.
That's a question. Who does Ryan Clark go to?
Sard.
Oh, so you reckon he goes to Sard?
Yeah,
Okay.
he's a forward. He's a forward. He tags a defender always.
Yeah, he's like our Ed Kerno, but he actually tags. And actually, it's good by foot.
Could he keep up with his speed?
I mean, he managed to do it with Dacos, all right. So I'd assume he could do it with Sard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Sardi's a different breed, though, Fish.
The big Sard. All right, Daft Boy, is there anything else you want to touch on for the episode, mate?
Just get it done. Go to Sydney, get the points, and bugger off out of that town.
Oh, please. Actually, I don't think you're going. Daft Boy on the weekend. But Fish, are you going down to Sydney on Friday night?
Nah, definitely not. Definitely not.
All right. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, as we just said earlier, Fish. Please, to the viewers, like, comment, subscribe. Of course, this week we are playing Sydney. So, of course, the Swans supporters, because you see Fisher on our screens, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Make sure to share the channel around. We're on any platform you can name. And make sure also on Spotify, make sure to give us a great review and 5 stars. But boys, absolute pleasure. Fish, absolute pleasure to have you on. Looking forward to maybe doing some more episodes next year. Daffy Boy, as always, and as always to the baggers out there, and maybe also the Swan supporters. Up the baggers!